Welcome to Boomerang Diaspora.
Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Boomerang Diaspora.
Today, we are joined by Chams Diagne, CEO of Talent2Africa, a recruiting platform connecting talent from the African diaspora to companies in Africa. Chams is a native of Senegal and after spending 20 plus years in France, moved back to Africa to lead Viadeo. 4 years ago, he decided to start his own company, Talent2Africa, which is now present in 5 different countries. In today's discussion, we will talk about the difficulties of breaking into the recruiting market in Africa. Chams will provide insights around the industry which are hiring in Africa and the skill set that they're looking for when they're tapping into the African diaspora. Chams is going to cover the compensation package that the African diaspora receives when they are returning home. We'll also talk about the difficulties that the African diaspora is facing when it's transitioning to Africa. Chams will provide insight around the nationalities which are returning the most to Africa. And lastly, Chams is going to talk about the jobs of the futures in Africa. So welcome, Chams.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Kelvin, for the invitation. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we are. We're very excited to talk to you today and to share your unique perspective. So why Talent2Africa?
In fact, Talent2Africa, as you can see, the name means we want all the talents to move back Africa, right? I came to this conclusion because I've been heading Viadeo. So Viadeo, which it was the second largest professional social network, right after LinkedIn, then back to 10 years ago. So I was heading operations in Africa. I was based in Casablanca, and from Casablanca, I was traveling all across Africa. And I realized that, all these big platforms were really tailored for Western countries more than African countries. When it comes to recruitment, we talk about, human resources. So people, as you know, African need to get connected one another. And if you go and try to find a job, we will ask you, who who refer you to me, right? And having only the connection on a platform was not enough. Headquarters didn't really get it. So they said, no, listen, we have one platform, it's one model. So why would we change it for Africa, right? So I decided to think about my next step, and I really wanted to disrupt existing headhunting model, use our traditional channel, and try to build something really a kind of mix between the technical platform and the human relationship with people to make it really something African. I started in Senegal. Now we are present in Côte d'Ivoire. We are in Morocco. We are in Kenya, Nairobi, and we're also in France. And our aim is really to make the connection between this African talent and African companies to make it easy, smooth, and different from what we've seen up to now.
Okay, excellent. Did you find any difficulty tapping into this kind of market, the recruiting market in Africa?
So companies are used to work with their friends, headhunting companies they know very well. The relationship between HR directors in companies and these CEOs of headhunting agencies is really, very strong. So it's very difficult to come and say, okay, listen, this is how we do it. This is how we can address your issue. And if we succeed on the first recruitment, then you can maybe change your perspective and decide to use services like ours. This is one of the things we realize on the continent. Also, there is, of course, a lack of talent in some industries. For instance, when it comes to technical tech profiles, it's very difficult at the moment. I'm sure you heard about Andela, who's struggling a lot currently because, their strategy was to hire young professionals and to train them, etc. This is really expensive. and not really sustainable. So, it means that it's quite difficult, to have the right profile locally. So that's why our positioning is really to say, okay, listen, we are able to hire local talent, regional ones, and also international ones. So all the diaspora who's interested in coming back home or in other countries, it's not specifically you are from Cameroon and you want to move back to Cameroon. You can go to Senegal or Cote d'Ivoire, etc. And that's something quite usual that we noticed.
That's great. That's great. That's fantastic. And you know it better than me that there's been a strong interest in Africa lately from the diaspora, even from people like from different nationalities. And a lot of people see us as the next frontier, and people want to take advantage of it. And this is where you come into the picture. You become that link between what they try to do, they aspire, and to put them in the right condition in Africa by joining with the company that fit their skills. What are those skills? What kind of skills employers in Africa are primarily looking for when they're tapping into the diaspora?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, people across the diaspora are in a unique position. They are educated in Europe or North America, where they gained work experience and valuable soft skills, which is very important also. They can be very good in terms of management. They are used to work under pressure, etc. And they get the culture, which is not the same for the expatriate, the traditional ones who are coming from Western countries, right? And these guys in general have this ability to build a strategy to make sure that they have a good understanding of the market, of the culture fit, and everything that can help a company to perform. There are some industries where, of course, these guys are ahead of the market. And for instance, if we think about telco industries, telco is very competitive, as you may know. In Africa, it's extremely competitive. And having guys who have been working in Europe or in North America in telco industry coming back to Africa, for sure, they will help local companies to gain, let's say, to be in advance compared to the other companies. Industries who are really interested in attracting talents from African diaspora are, industries like mining, civil engineers, oil and gas. For instance, let me give you an example on this. Senegal is about exploring oil and gas, but they have to build up the ecosystem from scratch, which is quite difficult, which is not easy. So, and they don't want to have only expatriate. They want to have African to come and help them, share the experience and make this happen in a few years. We have, tech profiles, of course, I talked about it, metal engineers, IT telco, banking, because now banking is really competing with telco, and, people who has the chance to work in this business in other areas are more than welcome. Transport, of course, and FMCG, because as you know, Africa is becoming one of the biggest market in the world. Yes. And we need people who has experience in this business who can come and, raise the bar.
Excellent.
To sum up.
Excellent. So pretty much almost every industry we can find a match in Africa.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Excellent. As you exchange regularly with those individuals, what would be like the top 2 reasons that job seekers from the diaspora either accept or turn down job opportunities? Okay.
In fact, number one is I think they are very, very, very interested in compensation. Okay. Right. Compensation is really critical in this negotiation with companies who are interested in hiring them, and they are prepared to move back if they know that their compensation will be higher than what they have there, and of course the role. One of the main reasons for people to move back to Africa is this possibility to grow their career locally, because they have some specificity, as I said earlier, soft skills, experience, culture, etc. that they can put on the table to to get hired and to get really responsibility that they maybe don't have where they are. Quite important for them and the perspective in the company, because they really want to boost their career, and they believe that, and that's exactly the purpose, in fact. Okay. Maybe in addition, I would say everything related to health. Okay. Because, for instance, people who are based in France, because in France, they have this security. They know that, okay, whatever you have, that you can, if you have anything, you can go to the doctor. You don't have to pay anything, etc. It's totally covered by the company. Yeah. But here, it's a bit different. And that's something very often that could be a kind of deal breaker. If companies say, yeah, we can cover you only at, let's say, 80% or 70%, it could be a deal breaker, because when people move back home, they are not really prepared for that, and they think it's totally chaotic, and they need to secure everything to make sure that if anything happens, they are totally covered.
A lot of people, especially those with families, and they're very concerned about the healthcare systems. The fact that it's well documented that we have underperforming healthcare system in Africa, and I can see that a lot of people in the diaspora who have that security. You mentioned France; they have that free healthcare system. Might be hesitant.
It's not totally 100% what I want, but I should be happy to be in a country where I can bring value. I can make the difference. I can maybe get close to my family, to my friends, etc. And there are many positive things that should be on the balance. That people usually forget.
So, but do you because I was mentioning family, but do you see a difference when you are negotiating with a female versus a male?
There is a difference. There is a difference. Women want to be secured at 100%, and more than 100%, right? They are really cautious. They want things to be very clear, and men are different. Men say, okay, yeah, it's interesting. I can get a pay rise. I can get a bigger role. I can have more responsibilities. I can go.
They're more adventurous.
Absolutely. And they are prepared to go first to see how it works, etc. And then when things get better, they come, and when they're settled down completely, they bring the family.
They bring the family.
But woman is more different. They want everything to be under control. Including schooling, everything they want really to have everything under control.
Why do you think companies or recruiters, they often view the demand from the diaspora as unreasonable? Is it because they believe they're Africans, or is it because what I hear from other people is the fact that they will pay foreign national this much. Why is it that I'm not able to get the same compensation?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. It's a very good question. But the thing is, when you look at for instance, multinationals present in Africa, they are more and more interested in hiring people from the diaspora and give them responsibility they gave from previously to expats, etc. I see that quite often. Talent from the diaspora say, yeah, why shouldn't I have an expat status, an expat compensation, etc. But that's not the trend. The trend is to build a kind of local package plus, right, for this kind of this candidates.
Profile.
So it's not the local package. It's not the expat one, but it's something on the middle, right? And that's how it is today. That's how it is. But you're right. I mean, very often I realize that the diaspora is not reasonable in terms of compensation, because they want to get exactly what they get where they are, or even more. And they don't often realize that, okay, finally I'm going to Africa, so so the cost of life is lower than the one where I live today. You should take into account the whole package and the whole advantage instead of focusing only on the compensation. And number two, the most important is in terms of growing their career. Their career grows much faster here than where they are. Okay. And that's something important. You shouldn't have a short-term view. You should have a long-term view. And really, it's true. Many of talent from the African diaspora, when they come, they are a little bit skeptical. Okay, let me see, etc. Sometimes they say, okay, I will go back where I'm coming from, etc. Because it's not easy every day, and that's right.
Yeah.
But the majority is happy because even if at the beginning it has been tough, it has been difficult. At the end, they said, I would never return because I didn't imagine that I could have all these opportunities in a few years as I do today.
Wow. That's very interesting. So speaking of the difficulties that they face in the beginning before they can adapt, when you go back and you talk to the ones that you were able to place, what are those challenges that you often hear that they face at first, transitioning from their position overseas to the new role in Africa?
Yeah, the challenges are, things are not really, everything is not under control because, things are not going that fast as you used to. Okay. Even if you delegate, you know that things are not going fast. So they can be maybe not really happy with the way things are going at school for their kids, because kids lost their friends and they have to rebuild all these things. So that's something very important in the mood of the parents also, because if kids are happy, parents are happy also. So, that's something that people should take into account. It takes time. In terms of mindset, sometimes it's not easy. So that's why one of my advices is to say, okay, try to keep connected with like-minded people. So it may help. And then, that's the kind of thing I've noticed. More on a regular basis.
I can see that. And when you do you keep track of the folks that you place to see how many have changed jobs or maybe move on to something else, like starting a business? They took the opportunity that you brought to them, join a multinational or local company, and now they move to another company, or maybe they saw something in Africa that they like and just started a business.
To be honest, we didn't keep tracks about this.
Okay.
But what we realized is that this is also one of African opportunities. So when you come back and you take, let's say, a corporate job, you can also, we call it here in Côte d'Ivoire a gombo. You can have a gombo. What it means that, you can have you can have an official job, you can have your corporate job, but on parallel, you can set up your own business. It can be, depending on what you want to do, you can set up your own business and have those two on parallel. Okay. So that's something quite often we realize, because people who are not prepared to go directly to entrepreneurship are dealing with this kind of combination. Having their job for security, salary, compensation, etc., and setting up their own business. And some of them finally decide to quit their job to dedicate their time to this new business they set up a few years ago.
All right, it's another opportunity. But do you keep track of those who are returning? Maybe the company say, hey, what happened to the talent that you placed? I heard that they want to go back to the US, they want to go back to France, to London, or it doesn't really matter once you place someone into an opportunity.
Yeah, to be honest, at the moment we didn't have this. Maybe we had one example.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it was one guy who joined us. Who joined our company.
Oh, okay.
And finally decided to move back to France, right? But it was for personal reason, But mostly people stay.
Okay.
Because when you come, even if it's difficult, it's tough, you have happy to be here.
Okay.
Finally, if they have an opportunity in Africa, and maybe a few years ago they have an opportunity, let's say in Washington D.C. to join World Bank, for instance. I know someone who did that. It happens also sometime.
Okay.
But not that much.
Okay. So since you have some of the data and your company place a talent all over Africa, and you sort of have offices, in multiple places as well, do you keep track of the nationalities abroad who are returning the most to Africa?
Yeah, in fact, what I can tell you is, if you take, the whole continent, people from North Africa return, almost automatically. They get, when they graduate, they start working in Western countries, and then they move back home. That's something quite common we noticed. We don't have specific track. I mean, I can't give you a specific percentage, but we know by experience that that's something quite often. It's the same with people from Senegal, from Côte d'Ivoire. And finally, it depends on the opportunities. In fact, when you look at countries who are really, let's say, in a position where there are many opportunities, and there's a kind of appealing for the diaspora, those people move back home, right? People from South Africa, of course, they move back to South Africa.
Okay.
But people from Nigeria, even if it's one of the biggest countries of the continent at the moment, people don't really move back compared to people from Côte d'Ivoire, Senegal, Morocco, etc. And even in the West, people from Kenya, companies in Kenya are really struggling to get, to get talent from the diaspora to move back Kenya. It's really difficult, and there are some. I can share maybe a survey with you about that.
Okay.
Compared Kenya, Nigeria, and I think Ghana. I will find that for you, so I can share you some figures about that.
Yeah, that'll be pretty interesting. That'll be very interesting.
Yeah.
So before I let you go, I will ask you, what's your vision of, for Africa in the next 10 years? And is there anything that we consider in Africa as job of the future?
I can give a bigger picture, because if you look at what's going on at the moment, we realize that now for Africa, it could be a huge opportunity to really use African market as the top market for African countries, right? So I believe that in terms of transformation, the trend is countries are more and more willing to transform locally instead of just exporting and not getting a very small part of the business, in fact,
right,
of the opportunity. So all about transformation is really, I think, one of the main sector in the coming months, in the coming years, that will really grow very fast. All about energy also. Energy is key. Even if you want to transform from a digital point of view, Africa, if you don't have energy, you can't do anything. So energy is really also one of the main industry that is currently growing and will grow, I think, much faster. And the third one is digital transformation, right? Because it's a leapfrog for Africa. And if you look at the mobile, for instance, Africa is the biggest mobile market in the world, right? Wow. So everything you do, related to mobile, you have, a big potential in Africa. So for the African diaspora, I think they should have in mind those three top, let's say, industries, and try maybe to find their way through one of these. Okay,
excellent. So one last final word, as a business person, a CEO, and a recruiter, what would you say to your fellow Africans in the diaspora today who might be interested in moving back?
The advice is quite simple. I mean, Africa needs talent, to grow. We need to develop our countries. We need to develop our economies. And when it comes to development, the first, most important thing is talent, right? So don't let other people from other geographies in the world come in Africa, you should come as the African diaspora. It's a kind of mandatory. And the thing is, you can come on different ways. You can come physically, or you can come through the digital to invest, or to get connected with business people here, and to maybe invest in your country or anywhere in Africa. But you should get connected to Africa. Anyway, it's very important, I think, for any African, wherever he is in the world, to see how he can invest, how he can give back to Africa to help this continent to grow, because it's really potentially the biggest market in the world. But we need Africans to build a story, right? So this is what I have in mind.
Thank you, Chams. This was a great interview, and I hope a lot of people from the diaspora now have a reference point in Talent2Africa if they're looking or interested into joining international companies or local companies, so they can further their careers. So
I'll be more than happy to welcome them. Yeah.
Okay, so let's make sure we keep on pushing this agenda, and I can't wait for what the future holds for Africa. Thank you, and appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
And you have a good time enjoying that gumbo in Côte d'Ivoire.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for joining this episode of Boomerang Diaspora.